The crash echoed through the quiet street just before dawn, metal scraping asphalt, plastic lid spinning across the driveway. I didn't need to look outside to know what had happened. My trash can had been knocked over again. But this time, I wasn't angry. I was waiting. For weeks, someone had been messing with my bins. Every collection day felt like a challenge. Trash scattered everywhere, while violation emails arriving before I even finished cleaning up. At first it was annoying, then suspicious, then obvious. The only person who seemed to notice every tiny mistake was the Karen across the street, the one who treated neighborhood rules like personal weapons. I had tried being polite. I followed every rule, checked every schedule, even measured how far my bins sat from the curb. None of it mattered. Somehow something was always wrong. And every time the mess appeared, she just happened to be watching from her window. So I decided to stop reacting and start preparing. I set the plan in motion 3 days earlier. Nothing illegal, nothing dangerous, just a little surprise hidden where she'd never expect it. Something that would show exactly who was touching my trash, without me saying a single word. The street outside was quiet now. Pale morning light stretched across the houses. I stepped onto my porch slowly, coffee cup in hand, like this was just another normal day. Across the street, curtains shifted. There she was. She stood outside pretending to water a plant that definitely didn't need water. Her eyes flicked toward my driveway, waiting for the usual reaction: frustration, anger, cleanup. But I just stood there, calm. The trash can lay on its side, lid open. I could see the small device inside still blinking. Perfect. My phone buzzed. A notification appeared on the screen. Motion detected, recording saved. I felt a quiet smile forming. I didn't rush, didn't confront anyone. I simply picked up the can, set it upright, and walked back inside as if nothing happened. Through the window, I watched her expression change slightly, confusion replacing satisfaction. She couldn't understand why I wasn't upset. Because she didn't know what the trash can was really hiding. An hour later, another knock sounded at my door. Not neighbors, police. 2 officers stood calmly on my porch, polite but serious. One held a small tablet in his hand. Behind them, the street had suddenly come alive, neighbors peeking through blinds, doors opening just enough to watch. Across the road, the Karen froze. The officer glanced at me and asked quietly, "You're the one who filed the report with video evidence?" I nodded. He lifted the tablet slightly, showing a paused frame, someone tipping my trash can under the early morning light. And as the realization spread across her face, I knew this wasn't just another complaint anymore. This was the moment the secret inside that trash can changed everything, and the story was only just beginning. The officer held the tablet at an angle where only I could see clearly. The paused video showed my driveway at dawn, quiet, still, and then suddenly alive with movement. A familiar figure walked into frame, glanced left and right, and pushed the trash can over with deliberate force. No accident, no misunderstanding, intentional. I looked past the officers toward the street. The Karen stood frozen beside her mailbox, gripping it slightly as if she needed something to hold onto. She couldn't hear us from that distance, but she knew. The way her expression shifted told me she realized something had gone very wrong. "We received your evidence through the online report," the officer said quietly. "We just need to confirm a few details." I invited them inside. The room suddenly felt smaller with uniforms. Standing near my kitchen table, sunlight spilling across the floor. One officer replayed the clip while the other took notes. The camera angle was perfect, hidden inside the trash can lid, capturing everything clearly. "You installed this recently?" he asked. "After the third incident," I replied. He nodded. "Smart." Outside, curiosity was spreading. I could see silhouettes moving behind curtains. Neighborhood drama traveled fast, and police at someone's house guaranteed attention. For once, I didn't feel nervous. I felt calm, like the truth finally had a voice. The officer paused the video again. "Has there been ongoing conflict?" I explained the complaints, the warnings, the constant accusations about trash placement. He listened carefully, occasionally glancing at the folder of printed notices I had prepared just in case. "This helps," he said. "Patterns matter." Across the street, the Karen disappeared inside her house. A few minutes later, She came back out, phone in hand. Even from a distance, I could tell she was talking fast, animated. Maybe calling someone from the board. Maybe trying to get ahead of the situation. It didn't matter now. The footage spoke louder than any complaint. The officers stepped back onto the porch after finishing their questions. One of them turned slightly toward her house, then back to me. "We'll speak with her next," he said. I nodded. They walked across the street calmly. No rush, no drama, just professional. The neighborhood felt like it was holding its breath. Doors cracked open wider. A car slowed down at the corner, driver clearly trying to see what was happening. When the officers reached her, she immediately started talking, hands moving quickly. One officer held up a hand politely, asking her to slow down. The other tapped something on the tablet. I couldn't hear the words, but I didn't need to. Her confident posture slowly collapsed into stiff silence. She crossed her arms defensively, shaking her head. Then something unexpected happened. She pointed directly at me. Both officers turned and looked my way. For a second, I felt a flicker of worry. Had she turned this into something else? Another accusation, another twist. One of the officers started walking back toward my house, expression unreadable. And the moment he stepped onto my driveway again, I realized this situation was about to become bigger than just a tipped trash can, because there was something in that recording I hadn't noticed yet. The officer walked up my driveway with a slower, more serious expression than before. For a moment, my confidence wavered. I replayed everything in my head. The camera setup, the report, the weeks of harassment. Had I done something wrong without realizing it? He held the tablet carefully. "Can we look at the footage together one more time?" he asked. "Sure," I said, trying to sound calm. We stepped inside. The screen lit up with the video again. Early morning shadows, my driveway, the trash can. The Karen appeared exactly as before, glancing around and pushing it over. I waited for the part one already knew. But the officer scrubbed backwards slightly and zoomed in. There, a few seconds earlier, another figure appeared near the edge of the frame. I leaned closer. It was a teenager on a bike, passing down the street. The officer tapped the screen. "We're verifying whether anyone else might have been affected," he said. "Looks like your bin almost rolled into the road." I watched the clip carefully. He was right. When she shoved the can, it tilted harder than I remembered. The wheel spun and the bin rolled toward the street before stopping near the curb. If timing had been different, it could have crossed right into traffic. "That's why we're asking more questions," he added. Quietly. Suddenly the situation felt heavier. This wasn't just petty neighborhood drama anymore. There was a safety issue involved. Outside, the officers were still speaking to her. Through the window, I saw her gestures becoming sharper, more defensive. She pointed down the street, then toward my house again, like she was trying to explain everything away. My phone buzzed. A message from Tom next door. "Everyone's watching." "What's happening?" I ignored it. The officer continued reviewing the clip, then paused on a clear frame showing her face looking directly at the camera, except she didn't know it was there. "Good quality," he said. I nodded. "I just wanted proof." He gave me a small smile. "You got it." A knock interrupted us. The second officer stepped inside. "She says she was trying to correct a violation," he said, almost amused. "Claims the bin was positioned wrong." The officer beside me raised an eyebrow. By tipping it over, they exchanged a brief look that said more than words. I felt something shift inside me, not revenge, but relief. For weeks I felt powerless, stuck defending myself against constant accusations. Now reality was visible, documented, undeniable. We stepped back outside. The Karen stood stiffly near her porch, arms crossed tight. When she saw me, her expression flashed with frustration. The officer spoke to me calmly. "We'll be filing a report. You may be contacted again." I thanked them. As they turned to leave, one officer added quietly, "You might also want to check your messages today." That caught me off guard. "Why?" I asked. He only shrugged slightly. "Just check them." The patrol car pulled away, leaving the street buzzing with silent curiosity. Neighbors quickly pretended to return to normal, but everyone was watching. I went back inside and opened the portal. A brand new notification flashed at the top. "Emergency board review. incident under investigation. My heart skipped. Because if the HOA was already reacting, it meant the video had traveled faster than I expected, and someone else had clearly seen it. I clicked the notification twice just to make sure I was reading it correctly. The HOA portal rarely moved fast. Usually complaints took days, sometimes weeks. But this message was marked urgent. The board was calling an emergency review meeting regarding community conduct and safety concerns. Safety concerns. That phrase echoed in my head. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the screen. For weeks every message from the HOA had felt like an attack directed at me. Now the wording sounded neutral, almost cautious. Something had shifted, and I knew exactly when. The video. I hadn't shared it widely. Only the police and the official report system. Which meant someone on the board had already seen the evidence. Outside, the neighborhood felt unusually quiet. The officers were gone, but their presence lingered like static in the air. Across the street, the HOA Karen's car sat in the driveway, but her curtains were closed tight. No more watching from the window. My phone buzzed again. A text from Tom. Heard there's a meeting. People talking. I sighed. Neighborhood gossip moved faster than any official notice. The meeting was scheduled for that evening. I spent the afternoon gathering everything. Printed emails, past violations, timestamps, and screenshots. I wasn't planning to argue or attack anyone. I just wanted facts. The same way the officers had looked at the situation. Calm, clear, documented. When evening came, the community center parking lot was fuller than usual. People stood in small groups, whispering before heading inside. The moment I walked in, conversations softened. Not hostile, curious. The HOA board sat at the front behind a long table, expressions serious. The chairperson looked tired, shuffling papers repeatedly. Then I noticed something missing. The HOA Karen wasn't there yet. The chairperson cleared his throat. This meeting concerns recent allegations involving resident conduct and potential safety risks, he said carefully. The door opened. She walked in quickly, eyes scanning the room. When she saw how many people were present, her confidence wavered for just a second before she sat down stiffly near the front. The chairperson continued, evidence has been presented showing intentional interference with another resident's property. Murmurs spread across the room. I kept my face neutral. One board member held up printed still images, screenshots from my video. Even from where I sat, I could see the clear frame showing her pushing the trash can. She immediately stood up. That's out of context, she said loudly. I was fixing a violation. The room grew quiet. The chairperson spoke gently but firmly. The police report indicates otherwise. Her posture tightened. She looked around as if expecting support, but most people avoided eye contact. Then the board announced something none of us expected. They were temporarily suspending her ability to file HOA complaints until the investigation finished. The room went silent. Her face drained of color. I felt a strange mix of relief and disbelief. For months, her complaints had driven everything. Now the power was being paused, at least for now. The meeting moved on, discussing policy changes and future review procedures. I barely heard the words because one thought kept repeating in my mind. This was really happening. As people started to leave, the chairperson stopped me quietly near the door. We may need the full footage, he said. There's something else we noticed. Something else. I froze. Because if the board had seen something I missed, then the secret inside that trash can was about to reveal even more, and whatever it was could change everything again. I didn't leave right away. The parking lot outside was filling with quiet conversations, small clusters of neighbors replaying what they'd just witnessed. I stayed near the entrance, waiting for the chairperson to explain what he meant by something else. He stepped out a few minutes later, holding a folder tucked under his arm. Up close, he looked exhausted, the kind of tired that comes from dealing with too much drama for too long. Can we talk for a moment? He asked. We moved to a quieter corner near the building's side wall, away from listening ears. He opened the folder and pulled out a still image printed from the video. At first glance, it looked like the same moment everyone had already seen, the HOA Karen tipping my trash can. But he pointed near the edge of the frame. Look closer, he said. I squinted. There, barely visible, was another trash can in the background. Not mine, a neighbor's, Further down the street. The chairperson tapped it. We cross-checked the timestamp with a separate complaint filed last month. Same time of day, same person nearby. My stomach tightened. She's been doing this elsewhere. I asked. He nodded slowly. We're starting to think your situation isn't isolated. Suddenly all those whispers from neighbors made sense. The little stories that sounded too minor to matter. Bins moved, warnings issued, small conflicts nobody wanted to escalate. The chairperson continued, voice low. The board didn't realize how many complaints originated from one source until now. I thought back to every warning email I received, every accusation that made me question myself. How many other people had gone through the same thing quietly? He asked if I could send the full raw footage directly to the board. I agreed immediately. As we spoke, the Karen walked past us toward her car. She didn't look angry anymore, just tense. Her eyes briefly met mine before she looked away. No words, no confrontation, just silence. When she drove off, the chairperson sighed. We're going to have to review a lot of records. Back home, I uploaded the complete video file and sent it as requested. The moment I hit send, my phone started buzzing, messages from neighbors I barely knew. Glad someone finally spoke up. Same thing happened to me last year. Thank you for recording it. I sat there reading them, realizing how big this had become. It was never really about trash cans. It was about control, and people finally seeing it. Later that night, I checked the HOA portal again. New announcement. Temporary policy change. All complaints require secondary review until further notice. I actually laughed out loud. That was a direct response to everything unfolding. Across the street, her house remained dark. I thought maybe this was the end, the moment things would finally calm down. Then my doorbell rang. 2 officers stood there again. But this time, they weren't here about my report. One officer held a small envelope and said quietly, "We need to ask you a few questions about another incident connected to your footage." My heart skipped. Another incident. The trash can had captured more than I realized. And whatever they were about to tell me meant the story was expanding beyond the neighborhood, into something none of us saw coming. The officers stepped inside, polite but noticeably more serious than before. One held the small envelope while the other glanced around my living room like he was choosing his words carefully. "We're following up on another report," he said. "Your footage may have captured part of it." I sat down slowly. "Another report." He opened the envelope and pulled out a printed still image. It was grainier than my footage, taken from farther away, but I recognized the angle. Same street, same early morning light. "This came from a neighbor's security camera," he explained. "Different date, similar behavior." I leaned forward. The image showed the Karen near another driveway, standing close to a trash bin that didn't belong to me. She wasn't touching it yet, but the posture was familiar. Watching, waiting. The officer continued. "That resident reported repeated property disturbances but never had clear proof. Your video helped connect the timeline." My stomach sank. This had gone way beyond my situation. "Are they pressing charges?" I asked. "Not at this stage," he said. "Right now we're documenting patterns." Patterns. That word kept coming back. He asked me if I remembered seeing anything unusual on specific mornings listed in the report. I answered as honestly as I could. Mostly early noise, occasional movement, nothing I could confirm directly. When they finished, one officer smiled slightly. "You did the right thing installing that camera." After they left, I stood at the window watching their car pull away. Across the street, the Karen's porch light turned on. She stepped outside slowly, looking down the street as if she sensed something shifting around her. I wondered if she knew how much had changed in just a few days. My phone buzzed again. Announcement. Special board session tomorrow. Attendance requested. I exhaled. Another meeting. This time it felt different though. Less like an argument, more like consequences unfolding. The next evening, the community center was packed. People who normally ignored meetings filled the seats. The atmosphere felt cautious but curious. The board looked tense. Papers stacked high in front of them. The chairperson began speaking. "After reviewing multiple reports and evidence, we've identified repeated misuse of complaint processes affecting several residents." Murmurs spread. The Karen sat quietly this time, hands folded tightly, eyes fixed on the table. The board explained new oversight rules and announced a formal internal review of previous complaints filed over the last year. Then the chairperson said something that shocked the room. Several violation notices may be dismissed retroactively. People exchanged stunned looks. One neighbor actually laughed softly in disbelief. The board member beside him added, "We appreciate residents who brought forward clear evidence." All eyes shifted briefly toward me. I felt uncomfortable but understood what it meant. The secret inside that trash can had started unraveling something much larger than anyone expected. As the meeting ended, neighbors approached quietly, thanking me or sharing their own small stories. Outside, cool night air filled the parking lot. I felt lighter, like a weight I didn't realize I carried was finally lifting. Then I saw her standing alone beside her car. She looked at me for a moment, not angry, not defiant, just tired. And as I walked past, she said one quiet sentence that made me stop. "I didn't think anyone would actually fight back." Her voice caught me off guard. I didn't think anyone would actually fight back. The parking lot felt strangely quiet, like the world had paused for a second. I turned toward her slowly. The confident, rule-enforcing persona she always wore was gone. Under the streetlights she looked smaller somehow, tired, uncertain. I didn't answer right away. She stared at the ground before speaking again. "I was just trying to keep things under control," she said softly, almost defensively. "People don't follow rules unless someone makes them." There was no anger in her voice now. Just exhaustion. I thought about everything that had happened. The tipped bins, the endless complaints, the tension that spread through the neighborhood. Part of me wanted to argue, to explain how frustrating it had been. But standing there, I realized the moment didn't need a fight. "The problem," I finally said, "is when it stops being about rules and starts being personal." She didn't respond. A car passed slowly, headlights sweeping over us. For a brief second, neither of us moved. Then she nodded slightly. Not an apology exactly, but something close. "I guess I didn't realize how far it went," she said. That sentence stuck with me. The next morning, the neighborhood felt different. People waved more. Conversations lasted longer. It was like the tension everyone ignored for months had finally broken. I checked the HOA portal and found another update. Review complete. Multiple past violations withdrawn. My name was listed among several residents whose warnings had been removed. I felt a deep wave of relief reading it. The constant anxiety of checking notifications every day was gone. Later that afternoon, Tom stopped by holding a coffee cup. "You notice how quiet it is?" he asked, smiling. I nodded. "Feels weird." He laughed. "Feels normal." We stood talking while kids rode bikes down the street. Something about that simple scene made me realize how much stress had quietly built over time, and how fast things changed once people started speaking openly. Across the road, the HOA Karen's house looked calm. Curtains open for the first time in days. No watching, no hovering outside. Just normal. I thought the story was winding down. Then my phone rang. The HOA chairperson. "Hey," he said, sounding relieved. "Just wanted to let you know the board voted tonight." "About what?" "A formal policy revision," he said. "Your situation pushed us to fix problems we ignored for too long." He explained new rules, rotating review teams, anonymous complaint limits, and required evidence before notices could be issued. Real safeguards. When the call ended, I sat quietly on my porch, realizing how a simple hidden camera in a trash can had triggered real change. But there was one final twist. Just as the sun began setting, a moving truck slowly pulled up in front of the house across the street. I blinked. Boxes stacked high, workers unloading. She was leaving. Neighbors peeked out again, curious but respectful. No whispers this time, just quiet understanding. I watched for a long moment, wondering if this was truly the end. Because sometimes the biggest changes don't come from winning, they come from finally being seen. And tomorrow morning, the neighborhood would wake up to a street that felt completely different than the one where this story began. The moving truck stayed parked in front of her house most of the day. Workers carried boxes in steady rhythm, loading years of belongings piece by piece. No loud conversations, no drama, just the quiet sound of tape ripping and footsteps on the driveway. Neighbors noticed, of course. Curtains shifted, doors opened briefly, Conversations paused mid-sentence. But unlike before, there was no excitement in the air. Just curiosity mixed with something softer, relief, maybe empathy. I stood at my window watching the slow process unfold. It felt strange seeing the person who had filled the neighborhood with tension now moving out without a single argument. Around noon, I stepped outside to take my trash bin to the curb. The irony made me laugh. For the first time in months, I didn't check twice to make sure it was positioned perfectly. I just placed it and walked away. As I turned back toward my house, she appeared on her porch holding a small box. Our eyes met again. This time she gave a small nod, quiet acknowledgement, nothing more. I returned it. No apology, no final confrontation, just two people understanding the moment was over. Later, the HOA board posted another update thanking residents for constructive participation and confirming that community standards would now focus more on cooperation rather than enforcement. Reading those words felt surreal after everything that had happened. Tom stopped by again, shaking his head toward the moving truck. "Never thought I'd see that," he said. "Yeah," I replied quietly. He hesitated. "Honestly, a lot of people were afraid to push back before. You changed that." I didn't know what to say. I never planned to lead anything. I just wanted my trash can left alone. The afternoon passed slowly. Boxes disappeared into the truck until only a few remained. As sunset approached, she stood at the edge of her driveway for a long time, looking down the street. For a second, I wondered what she was thinking, about the rules, the complaints, the years spent trying to control everything. Maybe she believed she was helping. Maybe she just lost perspective. When she finally got into her car, the engine started softly. The truck followed behind as they pulled away. No honking, no dramatic farewell, just silence. The street looked strangely wider after they were gone. That evening, neighbors gathered casually outside for the first time in ages. Someone laughed loudly. Kids chased each other across lawns. The atmosphere felt lighter, like the neighborhood was finally breathing again. I sat on my porch watching the sky fade from orange to deep blue, thinking about how small moments can spiral into big changes. A hidden camera inside a trash can had uncovered more than one person's actions. It had revealed an entire pattern everyone ignored. My phone buzzed with one final message from the HOA chairperson. "Everything officially resolved. Thanks for your patience." I smiled and put the phone away. The story felt finished. But as I looked at my perfectly upright trash bin under the streetlight, I realized tomorrow would bring the real ending, the first normal morning in a very long time. And sometimes, normal is the biggest victory of all. The next morning felt almost unfamiliar. No crashing metal, no scattered trash, no anxious glance through the window before stepping outside. Just quiet sunlight stretching across the street and the soft sound of birds somewhere in the distance. I walked to the curb slowly, expecting out of habit to find something wrong. My trash can stood perfectly upright. I laughed under my breath. Such a small thing, but after everything that had happened, it felt like proof that the chaos was finally over. Neighbors were already out walking dogs and chatting casually, and for the first time in weeks nobody looked tense. People waved without hesitation. Conversations felt easy, natural, normal. Tom jogged past and gave a thumbs up. "Peaceful morning," he called. "About time," I replied. Inside, I made coffee and glanced at my phone. No new HOA notifications, no warnings, nothing demanding my attention. The silence felt almost strange after months of constant alerts. I opened the HOA portal anyway, just curiosity. A final notice sat at the top. Community policy update effective immediately. The board had officially adopted new rules requiring evidence-based complaints, shared review oversight, and mediation before violations could be issued. Reading through it, I realized how much had changed, not just for me, but for everyone living here. All because one small camera had told the truth. Later that afternoon, I cleaned out the trash can. The tiny device inside blinked quietly, still recording. I held it for a moment, remembering the morning everything changed. I almost felt grateful for it. I set it on the table, debating whether to remove it permanently. Part of me wanted to keep it, just in case. But another part realized I didn't need to feel on guard anymore. The neighborhood felt safe again. As the sun lowered, A few residents gathered near the sidewalk, chatting and laughing. Someone mentioned organizing a small community barbecue next month, something that would have felt impossible during the height of the tension. I joined them, feeling a sense of belonging that hadn't been there before. No one mentioned the old drama directly. They didn't have to. The atmosphere said everything. When evening settled in, I stood alone on my porch for a moment, looking down the quiet street. The house across from me sat empty now, lights off, peaceful. I thought about that first morning, the tipped trash can, the frustration, the feeling of being targeted. Back then it felt like a small, personal battle. I never imagined it would lead to policy changes, new friendships, and a calmer neighborhood. Sometimes standing up doesn't mean shouting. Sometimes it means staying calm, gathering proof, and letting the truth speak for itself. I placed the little camera inside a drawer and closed it. The streetlights flickered on. My trash can sat calmly by the curb, untouched.
Welcome to Karen Universe, where we dive into every wild, quirky, and intriguing story out there. HOA Karen trade missing with my trash can again, but this time I was ready. She had no idea a hidden camera was recording everything. When the footage played at the HOA meeting, the entire room went silent. If you enjoyed the, don't forget to subscribe to Karen Universe, share with your friends and drop your thoughts in the comments.